Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating stage, the 4-year-old. That's roughly 48 to 60 months old.
Right. That year just before many kids start formal schooling.
Exactly. And it's packed with, well, incredible growth. We've got this detailed resource, 4yearsold.pdf, and our mission today is to really dig into what makes this time so crucial.
We're looking at their thinking, language, emotions, social skills, physical development, the whole picture.
Yeah, getting a comprehensive but, digestible understanding. And one thing that jumped out from the material is this idea of the confident explorer.
Oh, I love that description. It really captures their energy, doesn't it?
It totally does. That drive to figure things out, their eagerness to engage with everything.
Exactly. And you see that curiosity shaping everything else they're doing.
So let's start there with the cognitive side. What does this confident explorer look like in terms of how they think? The resource mentions a big surge in curiosity and something called narrative construction.
hmm It's definitely more than just asking why all the time, though they certainly do that.
Oh, believe me, I know.
Well, they're actively trying to build like a mental map of how the world works. Those questions, why do the clouds follow us?
Or if I flush the toilet too many times, will the ocean flood? I saw that one in the notes.
Right. Or even, do ants have families? These aren't just random. They show the child experimenting with logic. They're forming little hypotheses.
Testing things out in their own way.
Absolutely. Trying to connect the dots. That's that explorer mindset, not afraid to ask, not afraid to guess.
Little thinkers in action. And it's not just the abstract stuff, is it? The resource also talks about getting better at sequencing stories.
Yes. Putting events in order and grasping basic time concepts like
Yeah.
yesterday and tomorrow, though that's still developing.
And that complex imaginative play with rules and roles. We all remember playing house or superheroes,
Oh,
right?
definitely. And those pretend scenarios are so important cognitively. Think about it.
Ugh.
They're problem solving within the game.
Asking, what if this happened in our pretend world?
Exactly. Plus, they're getting much better at noticing patterns, sorting objects by size or color, understanding opposites, simple cause and effect. It's a huge period for intellectual growth.
So for parents or caregivers listening, how can we best support this? The resource suggests encouraging open-ended questions instead of just giving the answer.
You bounce it back right. What do you think might happen? Or why do you think the clouds look like they're following us?
Get them thinking. And activities comparing things like, how is a car different from a bus?
Yes, compare and contrast. It pushes them to analyze, to find similarities and differences. And simple sorting games, grouping toys by type or color, helps build those classification skills. Everyday stuff, really.
It all adds up. Now, this thinking ability is obviously tied closely to their language skills. And wow, the resource mentions a big jump here. Vocabulary is hitting maybe 1,500 to 2,000 words.
It's remarkable, isn't it? And it's not just the number of words, it's how they use them.
Speaking in full sentences, mostly clear.
Generally, yes. And those why, how, and what if questions are practically nonstop.
Yeah.
They're also getting the hang of past and future tense more accurately. It's becoming more complex.
And they're using language for more than just asking for things, right? The resource says they explain, persuade, even perform.
That's a great way to put it. Language becomes a tool to negotiate, can I have 2 more minutes? To justify, I needed that crayon. And definitely to fuel that imaginative play we talked about.
It's their way of navigating the world and their relationships.
Precisely. And it's also when humor starts to emerge. They begin to understand jokes, maybe try to tell them, even use figurative language, although sometimes, well, a bit creatively.
Like that example in the resource, the spilled juice. It wasn't me, it was the juice jumping out.
Yes. And that's not necessarily lying in the adult sense, is it?
The resource calls it symbolic reasoning meeting a desire to avoid blame. I like the phrasing.
Me too. It's their imagination kicking in to explain something, maybe lessen the heat a bit. It's a peek into their thinking, not just deceit.
So the advice is maybe acknowledge the creativity. That's a funny idea about the juice jumping, while gently stating the fact, let's get a cloth and clean up the spill.
Exactly. Much more constructive. And using things like sequencing cards or story-building games can really help them structure their thoughts and language, too.
Letting them read familiar books from memory, that also helps build confidence.
It definitely reinforces story structure and language patterns.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to their emotional and social world. It sounds like things get a lot more complex here, too. They're feeling more than just happy, sad, angry.
Oh, yes. They're starting to identify and even name more nuanced emotions, things like pride when they accomplish something, or maybe jealousy, worry.
And empathy. Starting to understand how others might feel.
Beginning to, yes, it's a developing skill, but you see the seeds of it. They might notice if a friend is sad and try to offer comfort, especially if they see adults doing that.
And they're practicing those social skills, taking turns, sharing, saying sorry, though the resource notes, maybe with varying degrees of success.
Laughs. That's putting it mildly sometimes. Yes, they're practicing, but conflict resolution is still very much a work in progress. They're also watching adults intently,
Imitating us.
constantly, picking up phrases, behaviors, understanding social roles like mommy, teacher, doctor in their play. And they definitely start having preferred friends.
Friendships become more specific.
Right. And what's interesting is they're starting to notice their own feelings more, but, and this is key, they still really need our help to manage those big emotions.
That co-regulation piece is still vital.
Absolutely. The milestones mentioned are useful, showing pride, maybe shame or guilt, nervousness, starting to look at others' faces to gauge reactions, that social referencing, and showing empathy when it's modeled.
Like the example, I didn't mean to hit her, I was mad and didn't know what else to do, and then, I feel bad, can I make her a card?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That shows that beginning understanding of impact and the desire to repair the situation. It's more than just a quick sorry.
So using things like visual emotion charts can help them label feelings.
Yes, giving them the vocabulary. And maybe offering simple scripts for what to say or do when they've upset someone. Maybe you could ask if she's okay.
And praising them when they try to make amends or take a positive social step, even if it's hard for them.
Definitely acknowledge that effort. And around 4, we often see that shift towards peers becoming really important,
Choosing specific friends, noticing who's in the group and who's not.
right? And that can lead to those tricky moments of exclusion, like the example, you can't play with us because you're not a dragon.
Which sounds harsh, but the resource suggests it might be about controlling the chaos of the game, sticking to their pretend rules.
That's a really insightful perspective. It might not always be intentionally mean, more about managing the boundaries of their game. But the feeling of being excluded is real.
So it's still important to talk about those feelings later.
And maybe teach some bridge language ways to ask to join in. Reading books about fairness and including others helps too.
Okay, let's move on to their bodies. Physical and motor skills at 4. The resource says they're getting much more coordinated hopping, galloping.
Balancing briefly on one foot, maybe pedaling a tricycle or even a small bike with training wheels.
Throwing and catching better, using scissors.
Yes, much more control with safety scissors.
Yeah.
Drawing basic figures, the classic head with arms and legs sticking out.
The tadpole person.
Exactly, and starting to copy some letters. Plus, getting much more independent with dressing and undressing.
And there's that idea of movement with purpose. It's not just running wildly, it's running to chase someone.
Precisely. Or drawing becomes representing something specific, not just scribbling. Their actions have more intention behind them.
So the milestones include galloping, hopping, climbing better.
Drawing those basic people, maybe starting to write a few letters or numbers, cutting along a line reasonably well, using forks and spoons effectively, pouring liquids with fewer spills. It all shows progress in gross and fine motor skills.
I loved the example of the kid building a tall block tower and calling it a hotel for birds who don't like the rain.
Isn't that great? It shows the fine motor skill of stacking, but also the imagination and the cognitive link, making a story about it. It's all connected.
So encouraging is drawing, maybe in a journal?
Yeah, or giving them small helper tasks, setting napkins, stirring something simple, builds those skills. Simple obstacle courses in the backyard or living room are always fun too.
So we've looked at all these areas. How is their development really evolving or changing at 4? And what things kind of stay the same from earlier stages?
Well, their thinking definitely gets more layered. They blend fantasy and reality in really interesting ways. They start testing boundaries more logically. You hear that, that's not fair, a lot.
Questioning rules, exploring early morality.
Exactly. And their play becomes more performative, like you said.
Yeah.
Directing the action, assigning roles, explaining the plot.
Little directors.
Totally. Emotionally, feelings get deeper shame. Pride emerge more clearly. But they absolutely still need our help managing the intensity. Friendships become much more central, more important. They talk about their friends, notice group dynamics.
And what stays consistent? What needs carryover?
They still thrive on routine and structure. Predictability helps them feel secure. Consistent boundaries are still crucial.
Impulse control is still challenging.
Oh, yes. Especially when tired, hungry, or overwhelmed,
Yeah.
that's still very much developing. And they absolutely still learn best through play, through repetition, through connection with their caregivers. And importantly, that need for co-regulation hadn't gone away.
They can name the feeling maybe, but still need us to help them calm down.
Exactly. Our calm presence is their anchor.
Okay, so while we're watching all this amazing growth, caregivers also need to know about potential red flags, right? Things
Yeah.
to watch for by age 5 or 60 months.
Yes. The resource lists some important ones.
Yeah.
It's not about panicking over one thing, but noticing patterns.
So language-wise,
If a child consistently can't retell a very simple story or sequence of events, if their speech is mostly unintelligible to strangers, or they aren't really using full sentences yet,
seriously.
rarely making eye contact, consistently avoiding playing with or near other children, showing no interest in peers, or not responding to their name being called.
And emotional red flags.
Things like extreme aggression or withdrawal or being very rigid across different places, home, preschool, not being able to calm down at all after a meltdown, even with help, or showing basically no signs of empathy.
Cognitively.
If they're not asking or answering simple questions, can't follow a simple two-step direction like get your shoes and bring them here, or show zero interest in any kind of pretend play.
And motor skills.
Still needing significant help dressing or undressing, falling very frequently, unable to draw a simple circle, or really avoiding physical tasks. Also, unclear speech can sometimes be linked to motor control issues.
And the key point the resource makes is that while lots of 4-year-olds are quirky,
Absolutely. Development isn't perfectly linear.
right, but if you're seeing several of these things persistently across different situations, it's worth talking to a pediatrician or a child development specialist.
Exactly. It's not about labeling. It's about getting support early if it's needed. Early support builds confidence.
That's such a positive way to frame it. Okay, let's flip to the proactive side. What can we introduce to support their growth?
Lots of great suggestions. For literacy, rhyming books are fantastic, encouraging them to try writing their name, maybe using letter puzzles,
Numeracy.
pattern beads,
Mm.
simple counting games, how many spoons do we need, looking at a calendar together, making math part of everyday life.
Emotion skills?
Motion flashcards or feeling wheels can help them identify feelings, maybe some simple mindfulness songs or breathing exercises.
And practical life skills?
Practicing buttoning, maybe brushing teeth mostly on their own, letting them choose their own clothes, builds independence.
Social practice.
Role-playing with puppets or dolls is great for practicing social scenarios. Turn-taking board games. Even creating a story together where everyone adds a part.
And the resource mentions having things like props for storytelling, lots of art supplies,
Building kits, basic board games, things that spark creativity and interaction.
and gently introducing some early academic concepts.
Yeah, keeping it playful. Letter sounds through songs,
Wow.
number recognition games, pre-writing like tracing lines or simple mazes, more rhyming games. No pressure, just exposure.
And working on those executive function skills,
Yeah.
like following a couple of steps.
Yes, giving them two-step instructions.
Mhm.
Maybe having a small daily responsibility like feeding the cat or watering a plant. Visual routines can help with transitions too.
And having those social emotional tools, handy emotion charts, books about feelings, maybe a designated calm down corner or some sensory tools.
All really helpful for navigating that complex inner world.
I also really appreciated the section, What's Okay at Age 4. It feels very reassuring.
It is, isn't it? It reminds us that it's totally normal for them to still need help managing big feelings.
To have huge reactions to small changes sometimes.
Yes. Or to be a bit bossy or rigid in their play, they're figuring out control and rules. Occasional potty accidents are still common. And that intense curiosity about everything, even sensitive topics like bodies or illness.
It's not defiance, it's development.
Exactly. Signs of growth, really.
So, summing up, what are the key things to really encourage?
Definitely encourage storytelling and role play to build so many skills. Keep naming and validating their emotions, showing them it's okay to feel things, even if the behavior needs guidance.
Gentle but clear boundaries.
Essential for security. Give them real opportunities to help out. It builds competence.
Hmm.
And expose them to diversity in people, books, experiences. It broadens their world.
It really sounds like the caregiver's role shifts quite a bit around this age, too, from maybe primarily protector.
To more of a coach or guide, using language, empathy, helping them navigate challenges rather than just fixing everything.
Recognizing they're in that in-between space, wanting independence but still needing reassurance.
Precisely. And reframing those philosophical questions or power struggles, the resource had that great line.
They aren't challenging your authority, they're practicing their own.
That's the one. It's such a helpful mindset shift. It's developmental, not personal. We become co-narrators, helping them make sense of things.
Setting boundaries, but with compassion, remembering we're their anchor.
Exactly, their secure base, even when they push against it.
This has been, well, a really rich deep dive into the world of the 4-year-old. I love how the resource frames it as the confident explorer year.
It provides such a positive lens, doesn't it?
It really does. And those reflection questions for caregivers at the end are so powerful. Things like, where is my child gaining confidence right now?
The social dynamics are popping up. How do I react when they resist?
What helps us feel regulated? Where do they shine independently? These are fantastic prompts.
They really encourage that ongoing awareness and adjustment that helps us support them best.
So, as everyone listening takes a moment to think about this, maybe consider, how is this year of confident exploration laying the groundwork for your child's future learning and connection? And perhaps what small shifts in your own approach could nurture that amazing curiosity and budding independence even more? That's our thought for you today on the Deep Dive.